The ship shook violently, and Ho hit his head against the metal wall. Red lights flashed everywhere. Alarms screamed in his ears. He tried to reach the control panel, but another explosion threw him to the floor. Then everything went black. When Ho opened his eyes again, he was not on his ship. He was lying on a cold, hard surface that glowed with soft blue light. His head hurt badly. His vision was blurry. He blinked several times and slowly sat up. He was inside a cell. The walls were made of something that looked like crystal, but they were stronger than any metal he knew. Through the transparent walls, he could see a long corridor. Strange symbols floated in the air like holograms. This was not human technology. Ho's heart beat faster as memories came back to him. He had been traveling through deep space on his research vessel, the Horizon. He was a scientist who studied alien life forms. His mission was simple: collect samples from distant planets, study them, return home. But something had pulled his ship out of hyperspace. A massive vessel, bigger than anything humans had ever built. It had captured him like a small fish caught in a net. Now he understood. He was a prisoner of aliens. Ho stood up slowly. His legs were weak, but he forced himself to walk to the crystal wall. He pressed his hand against it. It was cold and smooth. He could not see any door or opening. He was completely trapped. For a moment, fear grabbed his heart. He was alone, far from Earth, captured by beings he knew nothing about. No one would come to save him. No one even knew where he was. But Ho took a deep breath. Panic would not help him. He needed to think clearly. He needed to observe. He needed to understand. He sat down in the corner of his cell and looked around carefully. The cell was clean and empty. There was no bed, no chair, nothing. Just the glowing floor and the crystal walls. Outside the cell, he could see other empty cells along the corridor. He seemed to be the only prisoner. Time passed slowly. Ho did not know if it was minutes or hours. He had no way to tell. His watch was gone. His equipment was gone. He had nothing except the clothes on his body. To keep his mind busy, he started thinking about the alien ship. From what he had seen during his capture, the beings were tall, very tall, maybe 3 meters or more. They had 4 arms and skin that glowed with soft light, like stars under their flesh. Their eyes were large and completely black. Beautiful in a strange way, and terrifying. Ho remembered his training. When facing an unknown species, observe first. Do not show aggression. Try to communicate. Show that you are intelligent. Show that you are not a threat. But would they give him a chance to show anything, or would they simply kill him? He pushed that thought away. Instead, he started drawing on the dusty floor with his finger. He drew the alien plants he had seen on the last planet he visited. Beautiful flowers with spiral petals, trees with roots that grew upward toward the sky. Life was strange and wonderful in every corner of the universe. Drawing calmed him. It reminded him of why he became a scientist, not for fame or money, but because he loved discovering new things. He loved understanding how life found a way to exist in the most impossible places. He was still drawing when he heard footsteps. Ho looked up. A group of aliens walked down the corridor. They wore armor that shimmered like liquid silver. Their 4 arms held weapons that hummed with energy. They stopped in front of his cell and stared at him. One of them spoke. The language was strange, full of musical sounds that Ho could not understand. But then a small device on the alien's chest glowed, and a mechanical voice translated the words into his language. The human is awake. Prepare it for judgment. Judgment, that word made Ho's blood run cold. The crystal wall suddenly opened, and 2 guards grabbed him with their 4 arms. Their grip was strong like iron. Ho did not fight. He knew it was useless. They dragged him down the corridor, past more cells, past doors that opened and closed automatically. Finally, they entered a large room. It looked like a court. Hundreds of aliens sat in circular rows, all looking down at a central platform. The guards threw Ho onto this platform. He fell on his knees and looked up. And then he saw her. She was sitting in a special section, separated from the others. She was younger than the rest, her glowing skin softer, more silver than gold. She had large eyes that sparkled with curiosity, not hatred. She wore a crown made of floating crystals. A princess, Ho realized. She was royalty. An older alien stood up. His voice boomed through the room. This creature is a human, a member of the species that spreads across the galaxy like disease. They are violent. They are dangerous. They destroy everything they touch. The crowd made sounds of agreement. This human was found in our territory without permission. According to our law, it must be executed. Executed. The word echoed in Ho's mind. So this was how his journey would end. Not discovering new life, but becoming a victim of fear and hatred. But he refused to beg. He refused to scream or cry. If these were his last moments, he would face them with dignity. He stood up slowly. The guards moved to push him down, but he raised his hands in peace. "I am not your enemy," he said calmly. His voice was steady. "I am a scientist. I came to study life, not to destroy it. I mean no harm to your people." The crowd laughed. They did not believe him. But the princess did not laugh. She leaned forward, her eyes fixed on Ho. She studied him like he was a puzzle she wanted to solve. After the trial, Ho was thrown back into his cell. He would be executed the next day, they said. He had one night left to live. But Ho did not cry. He sat in his corner and continued drawing on the floor. If he was going to die, he would die doing what he loved. He would die being himself. He did not know that someone was watching him through a hidden screen. The princess sat alone in her room, her eyes never leaving the strange human who faced death with such calm. She had seen many prisoners before. They all screamed. They all begged. But this one was different. This human drew flowers in the dust while waiting to die. He asked questions instead of cursing. He stood with dignity when others would have crawled. Princess made a decision. She would not let him die. Not yet. Not until she understood what made this human so different from everything she had been taught. She called for her guards and gave them an order that would change everything. The morning came, but death did not. Ho woke up to the sound of his cell opening. He expected executioners. Instead, he saw two guards and a familiar face. The princess stood at the entrance, her silver skin glowing softly in the blue light of the corridor. "Get up, human," she said. Her voice was cold, but her eyes held something else. Curiosity, perhaps. Ho stood slowly. "Am I being taken to my execution?" "No," the princess turned and began walking. "Follow me." Ho hesitated for only a moment. Then he followed her. The guards walked behind him, their weapons ready. They did not trust him. He understood that. They walked through long corridors filled with strange beauty. The walls were alive with moving colors. Flowers grew from the ceiling, their petals opening and closing like breathing creatures. Everything in this place was alive in ways Ho had never seen before. Finally, they reached a large door. It opened, revealing a room filled with scientific equipment. Tables held strange instruments. Screens displayed data in the alien language. It looked like a laboratory. "This is my research facility," the princess said. She turned to face him. "From today, you will stay here. You are no longer a prisoner waiting for death. You are my research subject." Ho blinked. Research subject. "I told the court that I wish to study human behavior and biology. It is a valid academic purpose. They could not refuse a princess." A small smile touched her lips. "You should thank me, human. I saved your life." Ho looked at her for a long moment. Then he bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, princess. May I know your name?" She seemed surprised by the question. Prisoners did not usually ask for names. "I am Princess of the Empire." "I am Ho, a scientist from Earth." He paused. "If I am your research subject, what do you wish to study?" Walked around him slowly, examining him from all angles. Everything, your biology, your psychology, your strange customs. Humans are considered dangerous animals in our empire, but you do not act like an animal. I want to understand why. And so began the strangest period of Ho's life. Every day would call him to her laboratory. She would run tests on his body, measuring his heartbeat, his brain activity, his physical responses. She asked him endless questions about Earth, about human society, about the way humans thought and felt. At first, Ho answered simply and carefully. He did not know if he could trust her. She had saved his life, yes, but she was still his captor. He was still far from home, surrounded by beings who wanted him dead. But as days turned into weeks, something changed. Was not cruel. She did not treat him like an animal or a thing. When she asked questions, she actually listened to his answers. When he was tired, she let him rest. When he was hungry, she made sure he received food. More importantly, she was genuinely curious. Her questions were not about finding human weaknesses to exploit. She wanted to understand. She wanted to learn. And Ho, despite everything, was a scientist too. He could not resist the chance to learn about her people in return. "Your skin produces light," he said one day during a research session. "Is it genetic or environmental? Does it serve a biological purpose?" Looked at him with wide eyes. "You are asking me questions. Is that not allowed?" She was silent for a moment. Then she laughed. It was a beautiful sound, like wind chimes made of crystal. "No prisoner has ever asked me questions before. They are usually too busy crying or cursing." "I am a scientist," Ho said simply. "Curiosity is my nature." From that day, their sessions became two-way exchanges. Studied Ho, and Ho studied biology and culture. They talked for hours about their different worlds. Ho told her about Earth's oceans, vast and blue and full of life. He told her about mountains that touched the clouds and deserts that stretched forever. He told her about human music, how it could make people cry or dance or fall in love. Was fascinated by everything, but especially by human emotions. "Your species feels so much," she said one evening. "Love, hate, joy, sadness. You let these feelings control your actions. Is that not dangerous?" Ho thought about the question carefully. Sometimes it is dangerous. Emotions can make humans do terrible things, start wars, hurt each other, destroy themselves. Then why do you not remove them? We learned long ago to control our emotions. We make decisions based on logic and law, not feeling. Ho shook his head. Because emotions also make us do wonderful things. A mother protects her child because of love. A stranger helps another stranger because of compassion. We create art and music because of the feelings inside us that we cannot express any other way. He looked at her. "Emotions are not a weakness, princess. They are what make us human." Was quiet for a long time after that. The court did not approve of the princess's new project. Commander, the queen's military advisor, was especially displeased. He visited its laboratory one day, his 4 arms crossed over his armored chest. "This experiment is foolish," he said, looking at Ho with obvious disgust. "Humans cannot be trusted. They are liars and killers. You waste your time trying to understand them." "I waste my own time, Commander," replied calmly. "That is my right as a princess." His eyes narrowed. "Your mother will not approve of this obsession." "My mother approved my request. That is all that matters." After left, Ho looked at. "He hates me very much." "He hates all humans. He lost his brother in a conflict with your species many years ago." Ho felt a wave of sadness. "I am sorry for his loss. War brings pain to everyone." Studied him. "You truly mean that, do you not? Even though he wants you dead, you feel sorry for his suffering." "His brother was someone's son, someone's friend. His death was a tragedy no matter which side he was on." Ho met her eyes. "I told you, princess, emotions make us do both terrible and wonderful things. Compassion is one of the wonderful ones." That night could not sleep. She lay in her royal bed, surrounded by luxury, and thought about the human in her laboratory. Everything she had been taught about humans said they were monsters, violent, selfish, primitive. But Ho was none of these things. He was kind, he was curious. He felt compassion for an enemy who wanted him dead. Was everything she knew about humans wrong? Or was Ho simply different from the rest of his species? She did not have answers yet, but she knew one thing for certain. She wanted to keep learning. She wanted to understand this strange, emotional, beautiful creature from Earth. And somewhere deep inside her chest, in a place she did not fully understand, something warm was beginning to grow. 3 months passed on Prime. Ho had learned to count the days by watching the twin suns rise and set through the windows of his laboratory. The days were longer here than on Earth. The light was different, more golden, more warm. Sometimes he missed the simple blue sky of his home planet, but most of the time he was too busy to feel homesick. His life had become something he never expected. He was still a prisoner, technically. Guards still followed him everywhere. He was not allowed to leave certain areas of the royal complex, but within those limits he had found something close to freedom. He had found a friend. Came to see him every day now, sometimes for research, sometimes just to talk. She had endless questions about Earth, about human culture, about the strange and wonderful ways his species lived and loved and dreamed. And Ho had questions too, so many questions. He learned that lived for hundreds of years. They had conquered dozens of star systems. Their technology was far beyond anything humans had achieved. But despite all their power, they had lost something along the way. "We do not create art anymore," told him one day. They were sitting in the floating gardens, a magical place where plants grew on platforms that hovered in the air. Water flowed upward instead of down. Flowers sang soft melodies when touched. "We used to long ago, but now we only build things that are useful, weapons, ships, machines." "Why did you stop?" Ho asked. "Because art comes from emotion, and we learn to control our emotions." She touched a singing flower and a sad melody filled the air. "My people believe that feelings make us weak, so we pushed them away. We became strong and logical, but we also became empty," Ho suggested gently. Nodded slowly. "Empty, yes, that is the right word." Ho reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper. Over the weeks, had given him materials to write and draw. He had practiced something special, and now he wanted to share it with her. "Let me show you something," he said. He began folding the paper with careful movements. His fingers worked quickly, turning the flat sheet into something three-dimensional. After a minute, he held up his creation. A small paper crane. Stared at it with wonder. "What is this?" "It is called origami, the art of paper folding. On Earth, we believe that if you fold 1,000 paper cranes, you can make a wish come true." He placed the crane in her upper right hand. "This is art that anyone can make. No special tools, no expensive materials, just paper and patience." Held the crane like it was the most precious thing in the universe. She turned it gently, watching how the light passed through the paper. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "You can learn to make them too, if you want." And so Ho taught the princess of an alien empire how to fold paper cranes. They sat together in the floating garden for hours, their hands working side by side. Struggled at first. Her 4 hands were strong but not used to such delicate work. She crushed several papers and growled in frustration. But Ho was patient. He guided her, encouraged her, laughed gently when she failed and cheered when she succeeded. Finally, after many attempts, held up her first completed crane. It was not perfect. The wings were uneven. The head was slightly crooked, but it was hers. "I made it," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "I created something beautiful." "Yes, you did." They looked at each other and something passed between them. Something warm, something dangerous. They did not know that they were being watched. Commander stood in the shadows of a nearby corridor, a recording device in his hand. He had been tracking the princess for weeks, gathering evidence of her strange behavior. Now he had what he needed. That evening went to Queen. The Queen's throne room was the largest space in the royal palace. It was built from living crystal that changed color with her moods. When entered, the crystals were deep purple, a sign of calm authority. "Your Majesty," said, kneeling before her, "I bring troubling news about Princess." The Queen's eyes, ancient and knowing, studied him. "Speak." Activated his recording device. A hologram appeared, showing and Ho in the floating garden. They were laughing together, held a paper crane in her hands. She looked at the human with an expression that no should show to a prisoner. She looked happy. The Queen watched in silence. The crystals around her throne slowly turned from purple to deep red. Anger. "How long has this been going on?" she asked. "Months, Your Majesty. The princess spends more time with the human than with her own people. She neglects her duties. She ignores the traditions of our empire." Paused. "Some say she has been contaminated by the human's influence." The Queen rose from her throne. She was tall, even by standards, and her presence filled the room like a storm. "Summon my daughter, now." When arrived, she knew immediately that something was wrong. The throne room was filled with high-ranking officials. Her mother sat on her throne with cold fury in her eyes. Commander stood nearby with a satisfied expression. "Mother," said carefully, "you summoned me." "I did." The Queen's voice was ice. "Tell me about your human daughter." Kept her face calm, but her heart beat faster. "He is my research subject. I study his species for academic purposes." "Is that so?" The Queen gestured, and the hologram appeared again, in the garden, laughing, holding a paper crane, looking at Ho with warmth in her eyes. "This does not look like research," the Queen said. "This looks like something else entirely." Wanted to defend herself. She wanted to explain that Ho was different, that he had shown her things about humanity that no data file could ever capture. But she knew her mother would not understand. "He is just a subject," she said quietly, "nothing more." "Good, then you will not mind if we execute him tomorrow." His calm shattered. "What? No, you cannot." "I can do whatever I wish. I am the Queen." Her mother leaned forward. "Unless you can give me a reason why this human should live." The room was silent. Everyone watched. Everyone waited. Thought of Ho, his kind eyes, his gentle patience, the way he folded paper into beautiful shapes, the way he talked about his planet with such love. She could not let him die. "He saved lives," she said desperately. "His knowledge of biology could help our scientists. His—" "Enough!" The Queen raised her hand. "I will consider your words. For now, the human will remain alive, but you will not see him again until I decide what to do." Wanted to argue, but she saw the warning in her mother's eyes. One wrong word and Ho would die tonight. "Yes, Mother," she whispered. As she left the throne room, his hands shook. She looked down and realized she was still holding the paper crane Ho had made for her. She held it close to her heart and made a silent promise. She would find a way to save him, no matter the cost. The sickness came without warning. It began in the lower districts of Prime, among the workers and traders who lived far from the gleaming towers of the royal complex. At first, it seemed like a simple illness: fever, weakness, trouble breathing. The local healers treated it with standard medicine and expected it to pass. But it did not pass, it spread. Within a week, thousands were sick. Within 2 weeks, hundreds had died. The disease moved like fire through the population, jumping from person to person with terrible speed. Nothing could stop it. Nothing could slow it down. The royal physicians were called to investigate. They ran tests. They analyzed samples. They searched their vast medical databases for answers, but they found nothing. This disease was something new, something they had never seen before. And it was killing their people. Queen declared a state of emergency. The lower districts were sealed off. Travel was restricted. Public gatherings were banned. But still the sickness spread, creeping ever closer to the heart of the empire. Fear gripped Prime like a cold hand. Ho knew nothing of this. After the Queen's warning, he had been moved to a small room far from his laboratory. Guards watched him constantly. No one spoke to him. No one explained what was happening. For days he sat alone, wondering if each moment would be his last. Then the door opened and stood there. She looked different, tired, worried. The glow of her skin seemed dimmer than before. Behind her the corridor was strangely quiet. No guards, no servants. Something was very wrong. Ho said, standing quickly, "What happened? Are you all right?" "There is no time to explain." She grabbed his hand with her lower two arms. "Come with me now." They moved quickly through the palace. The halls were nearly empty. The few they passed looked scared. Some were wearing protective masks over their faces. Ho saw medical teams rushing past, carrying equipment and supplies. "What is going on?" he asked. "A plague," said grimly. "A new disease. Our doctors cannot understand it. They cannot cure it. Thousands are dying, Ho. My people are dying." They reached his laboratory. She sealed the door behind them and turned on the security systems. "I brought you here because I need your help," she said. You studied diseases on your planet. Maybe you can see something our scientists cannot." Ho nodded. "Show me everything you have." Activated the laboratory's main screen. Data flooded across the display. Images of sick, charts showing the spread of infection, detailed scans of the disease itself. Ho studied the information carefully. He examined the structure of the virus. He looked at how it attacked cells. He read the reports from the royal physicians. After an hour, he stepped back from the screen. "I think I understand," he said slowly. His eyes widened. "You do." "This disease is similar to something we call a viral mutation on Earth. It changes its form as it spreads, which makes it very hard to fight." He pointed at the data. "Your doctors are trying to kill the virus directly. That is the normal approach. But this virus evolves too fast. Every time they create a treatment, the virus changes and becomes immune to it." "Then what can we do?" Ho took a deep breath. "On Earth, we developed something called vaccination. Instead of trying to kill the virus, we train the body to fight it. We introduce a weak version of the disease into the body. This teaches the immune system to recognize and destroy the real virus when it appears." Frowned. "We do not use such methods. Evolved with strong natural immunity. We never needed to train our bodies to fight disease." "That is why this plague is so dangerous," Ho said. "Your immune systems have never faced anything like this before. They do not know how to fight it, but I think we can teach them." Hope flickered in his eyes. "Can you create this vaccination?" "I do not know. I am not a medical doctor, and I am working with alien biology that I barely understand." Ho looked at her seriously. "But I am willing to try. If you give me access to your medical equipment and research, I will do everything I can." Did not hesitate. "You have full access. Whatever you need, I will get it for you." And so Ho began the most important work of his life. For 7 days and 7 nights he barely slept. He studied biology. He analyzed the virus. He tested different approaches, failing again and again, adjusting and trying once more. Stayed with him through it all. She brought him food when he forgot to eat. She explained medical terms he did not understand. She encouraged him when he wanted to give up. "I am not smart enough," Ho said on the 5th night. His eyes were red from exhaustion. His hands shook. "I am just a simple scientist, not a genius, not a hero." Took his hands in hers. "You are the person I know, Ho, not because of what you know, but because of what you are willing to learn. You are trying to save people who wanted you dead. That makes you more than a hero. That makes you human." Ho looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned back to his work with new determination. On the seventh day, he found it. A combination of weakened virus particles and immune boosters that could train the body to fight the disease. It was not perfect. It was rough and untested, but it was something. "We need to try it," Ho said. "The royal physicians will never approve," replied. "They do not trust human medicine. They will call it dangerous and primitive." "Then do not tell them it is human medicine." Understood immediately. She took Ho's research and presented it to the medical council as her own discovery. The physicians were desperate enough to try anything. They tested the treatment on a small group of sick. Within 3 days, those patients showed improvement. Within a week, they were recovering. The treatment worked. Word spread quickly. The princess had found a cure. Her brilliant research had saved the empire from disaster. Within a month, the plague was under control. Thousands of lives were saved. But the truth could not stay hidden forever. Some physicians began to ask questions. How had the princess, who had no medical training, suddenly discovered such an innovative treatment? Where had she learned about immune training methods that no scientist had ever considered? Commander investigated. He searched laboratory records, he questioned her assistants, and finally he found the truth. The human had created the cure. Brought this information to Queen, but this time the Queen did not react with anger. She sat in silence for a long time, thinking about what she had learned. A human had saved lives. A creature she had ordered to be executed had worked without rest to protect an empire that hated him. For the first time in centuries, Queen did not know what to think. She summoned the human to her throne room. She would question him herself. She would look into his eyes and understand what kind of creature he truly was. And then she would decide his fate. The throne room of Prime was the most magnificent place Ho had ever seen. The walls were made of living crystal that stretched upward for hundreds of meters, disappearing into a ceiling that looked like a captured piece of the night sky. Stars glittered above, though Ho knew they were not real stars but ancient light trapped in crystal forever. Rivers of golden energy flowed through channels in the floor, pulsing like the heartbeat of the planet itself. And at the center of it all sat Queen on her throne. She was ancient. Ho could see it in her eyes, which held the weight of centuries. Her skin glowed brighter than any he had seen, almost painful to look at directly. She wore robes of living light that moved and shifted like flames frozen in time. 4 arms rested on the arms of her throne, each finger decorated with rings that hummed with power. This was a being who had ruled an empire for longer than human civilization had existed. And Ho was very, very small before her. He had been brought to the throne room by guards who said nothing. They had marched him through the palace while crowds of watched. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with hatred, a few, surprisingly, with something like gratitude. News of his role in stopping the plague had spread despite attempts to hide it. The people knew that a human had saved them. They did not know how to feel about this truth. Neither did the Queen. Now Ho stood alone on the central platform, surrounded by hundreds of watching eyes. The entire court had gathered, nobles in shimmering robes, military commanders in gleaming armor, scientists and priests and politicians, all come to witness the questioning of the human. Commander stood near the throne, his expression dark with satisfaction. He believed this would be the end of the human menace. He believed the Queen would finally order the execution that should have happened months ago. Princess was not present. Ho had looked for her, but she was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps she had been forbidden to attend. Perhaps she had chosen to stay away. He did not blame her either way. She had already risked so much for him. Queen spoke, and her voice filled the room like thunder. "Human Ho of Earth, you stand before the throne of the Empire. Do you understand why you are here?" Ho's throat was dry, but he kept his voice steady. "I believe so, Your Majesty. I am here to answer for my actions." "Indeed," the Queen leaned forward slightly. You were captured in our space without permission. You were sentenced to death for this crime, but my daughter intervened. She claimed you as a research subject and I allowed this foolishness." Her eyes narrowed. "Now I learned that during my daughter's research, you somehow developed a cure for a plague that was killing my people. Is this true?" "It is true, Your Majesty." The court murmured, some sounds of disbelief, some sounds of anger. The queen raised one hand and the room fell silent. "Why?" The single word hung in the air. Ho felt its weight. "Why, Your Majesty? Why did you help us? You were a prisoner awaiting death. My people consider your species to be little better than animals. We have fought wars against humanity. We have killed your kind without mercy." The queen's voice was sharp. "You had every reason to hate us, to want us to suffer, yet you worked without rest to save lives. Why?" Ho thought carefully before answering. This moment was important. His words might determine whether he lived or died. More importantly, they might determine how the queen thought about humanity for generations to come. "Because people were dying," he said simply. "I saw suffering and I had the ability to help stop it. The decision was not difficult." "You expect me to believe that?" The queen's eyes burned. "You expect me to believe that you acted out of pure goodness with no hidden purpose, no expectation of reward?" "I do not expect you to believe anything, Your Majesty. I can only tell you what is true." Commander stepped forward. "He lies, Your Majesty. Humans are known for deception. He helped us to gain favor, to earn trust. Then he will betray us when we are vulnerable. This is how humans operate." The queen did not look at. Her gaze remained fixed on Ho. "The commander believes you are a threat, that all humans are threats. What do you say to this?" Ho took a deep breath. He had known this question would come. "Your Majesty, the commander is not entirely wrong. Humans are capable of great cruelty. We have waged terrible wars against each other and against others. We have destroyed and killed and betrayed. Our history is filled with darkness." The court stirred. This was not what they expected. The human was admitting guilt. "But that is not all we are," Ho continued. "Humans are complicated. We contain both darkness and light. We are capable of terrible evil, yes, but we are also capable of incredible kindness. We build hospitals to heal the sick. We run into burning buildings to save strangers. We give our food to people we have never met because we cannot stand to watch them starve." He stood taller, his voice growing stronger. "On Earth, there is a saying, we are not defined by our worst moments, but by the choices we make every day. Every human has the potential for both good and evil. The same person who could become a monster could also become a hero. The difference is in the choices they make." He looked directly at the queen, meeting her ancient eyes without fear. "I chose to help your people because that is who I want to be, not because I expected anything in return, not because I was trying to manipulate you, but because when I saw people suffering I could not look away. That is my nature. That is what it means to be human." The throne room was absolutely silent. Queen studied him for a long moment. Her expression was unreadable. The crystals around her throne shifted colors, moving through shades that Ho could not interpret. Finally, she spoke again. "You speak of choices, of the potential for both good and evil, but how can I trust your choices when I cannot see into your heart? How can I know that your kindness is not a mask hiding darker intentions?" It was a fair question, perhaps the most important question. Ho thought about his answer. Then he spread his hands, showing that he had nothing to hide. "You cannot know, Your Majesty. You cannot look into my heart and see what is there. No one can truly know another person completely. We can only see their actions and decide whether to trust them." He paused. "I saved thousands of lives. I worked for 7 days without sleep because your people were dying and I could not bear to let it continue. I asked for nothing in return. I made no demands. I did not try to escape or hurt anyone." He let his words sink in. "These are my actions. This is the proof I can offer." Queen sat back on her throne. The crystals around her had settled into a deep blue color that might have meant thoughtfulness or sorrow. "You are very different from what I expected," she said quietly. "The humans we have encountered before were soldiers, warriors. They fought and killed and died with violence in their hearts. But you are something else." "I am just a scientist, Your Majesty, a person who loves to learn and discover new things. There are many like me on Earth. We are not all soldiers." "Perhaps," the Queen's eyes held his, "perhaps we have only seen one side of humanity, the side that fights, the side that destroys. Perhaps there is another side we have not allowed ourselves to see." Commander looked uncomfortable. This was not going as he had planned. The Queen rose from her throne. The entire court bowed, but she ignored them. She walked slowly down the steps until she stood before Ho, close enough to touch. "You have given me much to consider, human," she said. "I will not decide your fate today, but I will tell you this. You have earned something few creatures ever earn from me." She placed one of her 4 hands on his shoulder. Her touch was warm, almost hot, like touching the surface of the sun. "You have earned my doubt. I doubted that humans could be anything but enemies. You have made me question that belief." She leaned closer. "That is either the beginning of something new or the most dangerous thing you could have done." Then she turned and walked back to her throne, leaving Ho alone on the platform, wondering what would happen next. The silence in the throne room was thick enough to cut. Queen had returned to her throne and now sat watching Ho with those ancient, unreadable eyes. The court waited. Commander waited. Everyone waited to see what the Queen would decide. Ho could feel his heart beating in his chest. He had spoken his truth. He had offered everything he had. Now his fate rested in the hands of a ruler who had spent centuries believing his species was dangerous. The Queen opened her mouth to speak. And then the great doors of the throne room burst open. Every head turned. Guards raised their weapons. Commander's hand moved to his sword. But then everyone froze when they saw who had entered. Princess stood in the doorway. She looked magnificent. She wore ceremonial robes of flowing silver light, the kind only worn at the most important events. Her crown of floating crystals circled her head like a halo of stars. Her skin glowed brighter than Ho had ever seen it, pulsing with emotion she could not contain. The Queen's voice held warning. "You were not summoned to this gathering." "I know, Mother," walked forward, her steps echoing in the silent room. Every eye followed her. "But I could not stay away, not when you are deciding the fate of someone I care about." The crowd murmured. Commander's face darkened with anger. The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Someone you care about," the Queen's voice was cold. "He is a prisoner, a research subject, nothing more. You told me so yourself." Stopped walking. She stood in the middle of the throne room, alone between her mother's throne and Ho's platform. The distance between them seemed infinite. "I lied," said clearly. "I lied because I was afraid of what you would think, afraid of what the Empire would think. But I cannot stay silent anymore, not when his life is at stake." She turned to face the entire court. Hundreds of faces stared back at her with shock, confusion, and curiosity. She had their attention completely. "I know what you all think about humans," she said. "I grew up hearing the same stories. They are violent, they are primitive, they are dangerous animals that must be destroyed." She paused. "I believed those stories. I believed them completely until I met Ho." She began to walk around the room as she spoke, her voice carrying to every corner. "When I first saw him in his cell, I expected a monster. I expected a creature full of hatred and rage. Instead, I found a man who sat quietly and drew pictures of flowers in the dust. A man who faced death with peace instead of fear." "Princess," Commander began. "I am not finished, Commander." Voice was sharp as a blade, fell silent. "I claimed him as a research subject because I was curious. I wanted to understand why he was so different from what I expected. I spent months studying him, learning about him. And do you know what I discovered? She stopped walking and looked directly at her mother. I discovered that everything we believed about humans was incomplete. Yes, they can be violent. Yes, they have fought terrible wars, but they are so much more than that. They create beautiful things. Music that makes you feel emotions you cannot name. Art that captures the heart of existence. Stories that teach lessons and inspire dreams. Her voice softened, but it still carried through the room. They love, Mother. They love with a fire that we have forgotten how to feel. They form connections that make them stronger, not weaker. They sacrifice for each other. They hope even when hope is foolish. They believe in things they cannot see. She turned to look at Ho. Their eyes met across the room. Ho taught me to fold paper cranes. A simple thing, just folded paper. But in that simple act I felt something I had not felt in years. Joy. Pure, simple joy. He helped me remember what it was like to create something just because it was beautiful. Tears glittered in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. And when our people were dying, he did not hesitate. He did not ask what we would give him in return. He did not remind us that we had wanted him dead. He simply worked day and night until he found a way to save us. She walked toward Ho's platform. With each step, the tension in the room grew. You ask why he helped us, Mother. You wonder if there is some hidden purpose, some trick, some deception. She climbed the steps until she stood beside Ho. I can tell you why he helped us. I can tell you because I know his heart. She took Ho's hand in hers. The court exploded with noise, gasps, shouts, cries of disbelief. In culture, holding hands was a gesture of deep intimacy, something shared only between partners, something sacred. Commander looked like he might attack them on the spot. The nobles whispered furiously to each other. The queen sat perfectly still, her face unreadable. He helped us because that is who he is, declared, her voice rising above the chaos. He is kind. He is compassionate. He sees suffering and cannot turn away. These are not weaknesses. These are strengths, strengths that our empire has forgotten. She squeezed Ho's hand and turned to face her mother directly. You want to know what the human is to me? I will tell you plainly before the entire court, before the entire empire. The room fell silent again. Everyone held their breath. He is not my research subject. He is not my prisoner. He is not my pet or my experiment or my curiosity. Chin lifted with pride. He is my partner, my equal, the being I have chosen to stand beside regardless of what anyone thinks. I love him, Mother. I love him in a way I did not know I was capable of loving. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Queen rose slowly from her throne. Her robes of living light flickered with colors that Ho could not read. Her face was still, but her eyes burned with something fierce. You speak of love, the queen said quietly. You, a princess of the empire, claim to love a human, a member of a species we have fought and killed for centuries. Yes, Mother. You understand what this means. If I acknowledge this bond, it will change everything. Our relationship with humanity, our laws, our traditions, everything. Did not look away, I understand. And you still stand by your words. I will stand by them until my last breath. Queen descended from her throne once more. She walked slowly, each step deliberate, until she stood before her daughter and the human who held her hand. For a long moment she simply looked at them. Her ancient eyes moved from his defiant face to Ho's calm one. She studied their joined hands. She studied the way they stood together, shoulder to shoulder, ready to face whatever came. You have put me in a very difficult position, daughter, the queen said finally. You have forced me to choose between tradition and change, between what I have always believed and what stands before me now. She reached out and touched his cheek with one hand. With another, she touched Ho's shoulder. You are both very brave, she said quietly, or very foolish, perhaps both. Then she turned and walked back toward her throne, leaving the entire court wondering what would happen next. The queen sat down and looked out at her people. "I have heard enough today," she announced. "I will make my decision tomorrow. Until then, the human will remain unharmed. My daughter will remain with him." It was not a victory, but it was not defeat either. It was a chance. As the court began to empty, finally let herself lean against Ho. He wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. "You did not have to do that," he whispered. "You risked everything." "Some things are worth risking everything for," she whispered back. "You taught me that." They stood together in the great throne room, surrounded by crystals and stars, and waited for tomorrow to come. The twin suns of Prime rose slowly over the crystal towers, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. It was a beautiful morning, a morning that would change history. Ho stood by the window of his quarters watching the sunrise. He had not slept. Neither had who sat on the edge of his bed, her 4 hands folded in her lap. They had spent the night talking, preparing for every possible outcome. They had made peace with the worst possibilities. Now all they could do was wait. A knock on the door made them both jump. "Princess Human Ho, the Queen summons you to the throne room. Her decision has been made." They looked at each other, reached out, and Ho took her hand. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The throne room was even more crowded than the day before. Word had spread throughout the empire about the princess's declaration. People had come from distant districts just to witness what would happen. The air hummed with tension and anticipation. Queen sat on her throne, her robes of light calm and still. Her face gave nothing away. Behind her stood the council of advisors, including Commander, whose expression was dark with barely hidden anger. And Ho walked down the central path together, their hands still joined. The crowd parted before them like water before a ship. Whispers followed them. Some faces showed hatred. Others showed curiosity. A few, surprisingly, showed hope. They stopped before the throne and bowed. "Rise," the queen commanded. "Stand before me and hear my decision." They stood. Ho's heart beat so hard he could feel it in his throat. Skin pulsed with light that matched his heartbeat perfectly. Queen studied them for a long moment. Then she spoke. "I have ruled this empire for 427 years. In that time, I have made thousands of decisions. I have declared wars and ended them. I have built cities and destroyed others. I have held the lives of billions in my hands." She paused. "But I have never faced a decision quite like this one." She rose from her throne and descended the steps slowly. The crowd held its breath. "My daughter has declared her love for a human. This human saved thousands of lives without asking for anything in return. He has shown me something I did not believe possible, that humans are capable of more than violence and destruction." She stood before Ho and looked into his eyes. "You challenged my beliefs, human. You made me question what I have thought for centuries. You made me doubt." A hint of a smile touched her ancient lips. "Do you have any idea how rare that is? How few beings in this universe have ever made me doubt anything?" Ho swallowed. "I did not mean to cause trouble, Your Majesty." "But you did. You caused great trouble. You turned my court upside down. You captured the heart of my daughter. You made me look at your species with new eyes." She shook her head slowly. "You are a very troublesome creature, Ho of Earth." The crowd murmured uncertainly. Was this good? Was this bad? No one could tell. Then the queen turned to address everyone. "I have made my decision. Listen well, for I will not repeat myself." The throne room fell completely silent. "First, regarding the human Ho, he will not be executed. He will not be imprisoned. Instead, I grant him protected status within the empire. He shall be treated as an honored guest, free to go where he wishes within our territory. Any who harm him will answer to me personally." A wave of shock passed through the crowd. Some nobles looked outraged. Commanders' hands clenched into fists, but no one dared speak against the queen. "Second, regarding my daughter's declaration. She has chosen this human as her partner. I do not pretend to understand this choice. It goes against everything I believed about the relationship between our species. But my daughter is not a fool. She has seen something in this human that I am only beginning to understand." The queen looked at with an expression Ho had never seen before, something soft, something almost like pride. "I will not forbid this bond. My daughter has chosen, and I will respect her choice." His eyes widened. Tears began to flow down her cheeks, glittering like liquid starlight. "But," the queen continued, "this decision has consequences beyond our family. If I acknowledge that a human can be worthy of a princess, then I must acknowledge that humans themselves may be worthy of respect. And if humans are worthy of respect, then perhaps our centuries of conflict were built on misunderstanding." She climbed back up the steps to her throne and stood before it, facing the entire assembly. "Therefore, I am announcing the formation of a diplomatic mission to Earth. For the first time in history, the Empire will seek formal contact with humanity, not as enemies, not as conquerors, but as potential allies." The crowd erupted. Some cheered, others shouted in protest. Commander stepped forward, his face red with fury. "Your Majesty, this is madness. Humans cannot be trusted. They will use this peace to attack us when we are vulnerable." "Perhaps," the queen said calmly, "perhaps you are right, Commander. Perhaps humans will prove to be exactly what you fear, but perhaps they will prove to be something more. We will never know unless we try." She looked at Ho. "This human saved our people when he had every reason to hate us. He showed compassion to his enemies. He chose kindness over revenge. If one human can do this, perhaps others can as well. Perhaps humanity deserves a chance to prove themselves." Commander opened his mouth to argue, but the queen silenced him with a look. "The decision is made, Commander. You may accept it or you may resign your position. The choice is yours." Stood rigid for a long moment. Then slowly he bowed his head. "I serve the throne, Your Majesty. I will follow your command." "Good. Then you will lead the security force for our diplomatic mission. You will see for yourself what humans are truly like." It was a brilliant move. By placing in charge of security, the queen both honored his concerns and gave him a chance to change his mind. As the court began to dissolve into excited discussions, the queen approached and Ho one final time. "You have started something that cannot be stopped," she said quietly. "A new chapter between our peoples. Whether it leads to peace or disaster remains to be seen." "I believe it will lead to peace," Mother said. "Perhaps." The queen looked at Ho. "Take care of my daughter, human. She is precious to me, even when she drives me to madness." Ho bowed deeply. "I will protect her with my life, Your Majesty." "See that you do." Then, for the first time anyone could remember, Queen smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it transformed her ancient face into something almost warm. "Welcome to the family, Ho of Earth." That evening, and Ho stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing cities of Prime. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in colors that had no names on Earth. Above them, stars were beginning to appear, countless points of light representing countless worlds. "I cannot believe it worked," said softly. She leaned against Ho, her head resting on his shoulder. "I thought for certain she would execute you, execute both of us." "Your mother is wiser than you give her credit for," Ho replied. "She saw the truth. She just needed time to accept it. And now everything changes." "Yes, everything changes." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out one by one. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere out there was Ho's home planet, his people, his family. Soon, ships would travel there. Diplomats would meet. Two species that had been enemies for generations would try to build something new. It would not be easy. There would be setbacks and failures. Old hatreds did not disappear overnight, but for the first time there was hope. "Do you think they will accept us?" asked. "Your people, will they accept a princess?" Ho smiled. They will be terrified of you at first. You are tall and have 4 arms and glow in the dark, but once they get to know you, they will love you, just like I do. Laughed. It was the most beautiful sound Ho had ever heard. I love you too, she said. My strange, emotional, wonderful human. He turned to face her, taking all 4 of her hands in his two. We changed history today, you and me, a human scientist and an alien princess. It sounds like something from one of your human stories. Maybe someday someone will write our story. They will tell how 2 people from different worlds found each other and changed the universe. Smiled, I would like that. The last light of the setting suns faded, and the stars came out fully, brilliant and endless. Ho looked up at them and felt something he had not felt since his capture. Hoping. The stars were no longer barriers separating worlds. They were bridges waiting to be crossed. And together they would cross them.